5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Lamar,
Here.
Mr. Kubicki,
Here.
Ms. Hughes.
Here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First, I make a motion to approve of the signing of the meeting minutes for January. My glasses on. January 1st, 2023. Do I hear a second?
So moved.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar,
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki.
Yes.
Ms. Hughes.
Yes.
And I make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of January 24th, 2023. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar,
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki.
Yes.
Ms. Hughes.
Yes.
Okay, we go.
Can I add that? I think that's January
It's a
10th.
10th. I'm
Okay.
sorry,
Oh,
that's
whoops.
a typo.
Didn't seem right.
The minutes are correct, the agenda
Yes.
is missing
Okay.
a 0.
Okay, make a note to make those January 10th.
It's spring.
Okay, we move on to open forum. Anybody sign in for open forum?
I have a couple of notes. Tom Schramm, did you want to say anything, or you just signed in?
No, I thought we were all supposed to sign in with me. I'm sorry.
You don't have to
No,
sign
it's-
if you don't
it's-
want to
You don't
speak.
have to apologize
Yeah.
for signing in. And Jack Fuchs, is that right?
Yes, Fox.
I'm sorry.
Fox like books. It's easy
Got
to
it.
say.
Thank you. Did you have any comments, or did you just sign in too?
I signed in, I have actually questions.
Okay.
rather than comments. I think that the
Name and
township
address.
does a great job on basic services. You know, I think the police, fire, the roads are exceptional. The cleanup on snow is superior to anybody
Yes, it is.
in the area. I mean, it is just astounding. The road work has been lovely, and I've been very impressed with how, for example, the repaving on Cambridge has gone in some of the other areas. I think that's great. I've expressed questions in the past, last summer, about some of the township's purchases, and that is going to be one of the issues today that I've got questions about. It really runs on 4 questions, sets of questions. What is the current status of the old fire department? The building that I thought was scheduled probably to be reopened as a community center by now. Is there an update as to what the status of it is? I mean, is it expected in the next 6 months, year?
Let's go ahead and ask all 4 questions.
I
And
mean,
we'll go.
that's one.
Okay, got it. Go ahead.
The second questions are on the 2 properties that were purchased last summer. What's the current status? What are the plans? As I recall, there was an intent to get some purpose of a plan for what to do with these 2 properties. And because it was a substantial purchase, nearly a 1/7 of last year's, 1/8 of last year's expenditures on those 2 properties. The minutes that I got yesterday afternoon, certainly were sent to me, that list a property being purchased at the corner of Grove and I guess it's Grove and Grace, which is an old residential property. And I've got a number of questions about that. One, what is the purpose of purchasing a residential property? The agenda doesn't identify what the price would be. How much is it the township intending to pay? Is it purchasing the whole property? Is it a subdivided piece? It appears that last summer that was purchased from what appears to have been a long-time family.
You're talking about the Grove property?
The Grove property. And it's kind of a two-lot property, but it's a single address. And the agenda doesn't say that. As a procedural matter, I'm wondering why you would waive the second reading so that there'd be more than 24-hour notice to the community at large as to whatever purpose it's
For the Grove?
for the Grove property. I mean, I have no idea what the Grove property is being purchased for. It's a residential property, unlike the two last summer that were, I guess, semi-commercial, retail, whatever, not fully residential. And I'm just trying to understand what's the purpose for it, how much is being paid, why it's being done. Basically a 24-hour notice to the public, since there's a waiver of the second reading, which we normally read next month. And those are my sets of questions. So I guess we'd start with the first.
Got it. So those are your three questions?
Those are four, actually.
Okay,
Four sets.
As a point of protocol, we don't discuss Grove before it's been presented to the trustees.
Okay.
So you can answer questions about matters that have been brought to the board and discussed publicly before, but there's been no public discussion before the board on Grove, so we will answer those questions. They're already part of the presentation for that resolution. So you can talk about the other items.
Well, actually, then before that is, how did it get on the agenda? Did any of the trustees have involvement? Did two or three of you get together and talk about it?
Yeah.
No,
I
not
did.
allowed to.
They can't do
No.
that.
Yeah, I mean, a public record or public meetings, open meetings, whatever, would seem you can't do that. That's one of the reasons why I'm wondering why. I mean, so none of you have heard about what the price is going to be before today? I mean, somebody's got to have heard of it.
Well, we
The
can't,
administration, as the administrator.
As the administrator, you're allowed to.
I'm allowed to individually talk to the trustees, but not together as a group, and no decisions can be made to make them aware that I'm bringing something before the board.
Okay, so this would have been from the administration that was brought to the trustees and not from the trustees. Did any of the trustees bring this to the administrator? Would be another part of the question.
All of the resolutions are brought from administration to the trustees for public discussion, all of them,
Right, and for private.
following public policy that has been set by the trustees. So there's a public policy decision that's made in a prior point that we fulfill by bringing resolutions to the trustees.
Are the resolutions distributed prior to the meeting?
The resolutions are only available 24 hours in advance, the same time the meeting notice goes out.
Are they available to the public at large at that point? Because I didn't see anything on the website.
The
On the resolution.
resolutions are public 24 hours, the same time the agenda is, and the public can request them.
Okay, they're not on the website at that point.
No.
How would one go about requesting?
Well, we've talked about this before. I've offered to you anything that is listed on the agenda. When you and I have met several times, and we had a couple of phone calls, I offered to you anything that you would be interested in having a copy of. We'll be happy to provide you the full packet. I actually need to double check because we typically, I want to just double check with our law director, and he's not here tonight. Typically, the trustees get a copy of the packet, and then we're allowed to release it to the public, and I'll just double check that with or if it's at the meeting or later, but I believe it's 24 hours in advance because it becomes public.
Yeah, I mean, the
It's just
agenda.
proposed legislation at that point.
Right.
Typically, people request, if they're interested in an item, they request it after the meeting, because then they know which items the trustees actually move forward with versus not.
And that's normally would be a reasonable thing to do, particularly if there is going to be a second reading, so that there would be time for the public to react before a resolution becomes a legislation in this case. And here, the agenda suggests that the second reading be waived. I would urge the trustees not to waive the second reading, since I really can't provide any meaningful input on the second purchase. And because I just don't know anything about it, what it's for, how much it's for. I mean, I would note that it was purchased by some real estate investors this past summer for $180,000. And they own a number of properties in Hamilton County, which they rent, and one which they own and live in. But I'm just trying to understand that. It seems to me that as good government, it would be nice to have the ability to have input on something that we know what it's about. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I mean, I just don't know what it is. And the other three items, though, status of the community center, and then status of the other two properties that were purchased last year.
Okay, well, let's start with the reopening of the firehouse. I mean, you're not asking what it is, you kind of have a general idea what we're doing. You're just wondering what's the timing, et cetera. And I know there's been a lot of engineering and architectural issues and supply chain issues and things we've dealt with, and construction issues. And Melissa, I'll let you elaborate maybe more on what some of the time delays or whatever have been on that, but it's just a long process. But what and the updated timing, I don't even know if we...
Yeah, we have let me move forward. It's actually in my administrator's report, but if we want to bring it out.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the firehouse full team review of the final plans is next Monday. And if all goes well there, then we put the bid packet together and bid the project. And if we have a successful lowest and best bidder, the bid will be open for 30 days. Because it's such a large-scale project, typically for road work, we bid 2 weeks. But for this scale of a project, the architect and the team recommends a full 30 days. So we'll allow full 30 days, during which time, if any of the potential bidders have questions, we answer those. And then we will schedule a public bid opening, which we do with all of our publicly bid projects. All projects over $50,000 are publicly bid, and the bids are open, the sealed bids are open in a public meeting that is advertised publicly, just like these meetings are. And then if we have a lowest bidder and the bidder meets all the requirements, then we will award the bid to the bidder, and we're told that the timeline could be as early as 4, possibly as long as 6 months. So we expect it to be completed this year.
Okay. And then on the second question you had, Jackie, you mentioned the 2 properties that we purchased. And again, just to be clear, as you mentioned, the
Murray and the Cambridge.
Correct. But you mentioned the financial part of it is 2 things. One, we have the funds and the wherewithal to do it. Oh, no, I know that, but I just want to make clear because, I mean, that we... Okay, we have the funds and the ability to do it because of some of the other business deals we've made historically. And as I've said in the past, taking an asset and from cash to real estate doesn't mean that we've spent the money. It just means we've converted from one asset to another. And we did it to protect the future uses of those in Madison Place. One, because we think it's, well, a number of reasons, but we think it's a very, very, very critical piece, 2 pieces of real estate in Madison Place strategically for a number of reasons, that if we're ever going to go redevelop Madison Place, the Plainville Road corridor, Murray Avenue, we felt that the best opportunity to control the uses of those properties was to take ownership. And because we had the wherewithal to do it, we thought, we'll take these, let's go find out if we can control the end uses to uses that we think can add value to Madison Place. If we can't find uses that add value, and I'm not saying we definitively can, then we will take the secondary use, which is something that doesn't diminish. I'm talking about a auto body shop, somebody that wants to put a store and lock facility, things that we just think that might even slightly diminish the value of Madison Place, but instead we might put an office use in, or et cetera. And so we felt the best way to control those uses was to go take ownership of them and hopefully find the right uses. And as far as where they are right now, we have renderings and such done on the building on Murray Avenue to present to, for a small cafe or a donut shop or a French bistro or what have you. Could be really a number of things. So we've got renderings done. We have a firm marketing the property. Help me out, Melissa. It is what's the name?
Lee and Associates.
Lee and Associates, which is a major real estate firm that does retail, et cetera. And we also have the marketing in conjunction to that would be the Cambridge property in conjunction with that, with an eye on the fact that the Cambridge property could, and right now we have the Cambridge property leased to.
Both properties are currently under leases into the beginning of 2023, so we're not taking any action on the properties.
2023.
Yeah.
And we're
We had
also
existing leases.
working with an architectural firm to go lay out the building and do an as-built drawings on the Murray Avenue piece, just so we can see how it can be repurposed for the next users. And we have a couple of very interested parties, some local people that we think could add value to the community, and we will continue to evaluate them through our consultants and our marketing team. And then as far as the third component of what you're talking about is the Grove property, we're always interested in properties down in Madison Place, both for potential green space, potential, we always have to get them appraised. We can't pay more than the appraised values. We are always interested for a number of reasons. Green space, alleviating some of the impervious surface ratios for water issues that have been historically a problem. And we're always interested in keeping our eye open for properties as such. And Melissa's identified this as a key piece of property that we should take a look at. And again, because we have the resources to do it, if we go in and shot and fired and missed, we can always go resell the property and repurpose the property. So we look to go see properties that come available. You have to act quickly to go get properties at least under contract, even if you don't close on them.
It's very rare that properties come open in Madison Place. We wait years and years for them to.
But any strategic properties anywhere that are available go so quickly in terms of at least getting them under contract, whether you decide to ultimately close on them and if they ultimately make sense to finally close on them. But no matter what, you've got to go act quickly to get the properties under contract. And sometimes there's not a lot of notice you can give to the public to do it. It's like, do you want it or not? Well, give me 30 days. You can't. You at least have to put them under contract. Then the secondary thing is just how much time do you have once you get it under contract? Certainly it's a negotiation. Certainly there's, it's just the world has changed in terms of key strategic properties, how fast you have to put them under contract, and then even sometimes how fast you are obligated to close. It's not like the traditional old days for strategically good pieces of property. So,
Can I add to that really quick?
Go ahead.
As a trustee, I would love to have a 30-day period when we're having expenditures like this, but I've learned that it's almost impossible with real estate in order to do that. I do think we have obtained public feedback in that since I've been a trustee in the past few years, two of the larger concerns that I've heard from Madison Place residents are either lack of control of the businesses, and that was very public what this community went through a few years ago, and flooding in Madison Place. And I think that what this board and what Ms. Taylor has done over the past few years, we're fortunate to be an opportunity to alleviate those concerns for the residents as best we can. We saw opportunities, and I think we're trying to improve in both of those two areas with these purchases. Certainly understand the challenge of the 30 days and public input, and that's unfortunate with real estate that we only meet once a month and it's hard to do emergency meetings, but I know Melissa does the best that we can.
Okay.
can say is, since there were emergency meetings last, or at least special meetings last month,
Mhm.
I guess there aren't really emergency meetings, there's special meetings for emergency resolutions, I've been advised. It seems that you could hold a special meeting and give the public, say, 2 weeks' notice. And real estate isn't turning over quite as quickly as it was prior to last June. It's just slowed down. Stuff does happen.
One size doesn't fit all, Jack. I don't want to.
And I completely agree. I'm
Yeah.
not- But you had said, it's all turns over so quickly. Yes and no. It may or may not.
I'm in the commercial real estate business, and if there's a good site, there is no time to waste for strategic, whether it's a house, whether it's I don't mean that the market hasn't may taken a slight adjustment. I understand that's an accurate statement, but I mean for properties that people want to develop, and especially if you go look at Madison Place, where the houses have just transacted for over $1 million each, that there's a piece of property that is there, ready to be, that's going to go very, very, very quickly. So I don't think that we can just pause and say there's 2 weeks. That just doesn't necessarily apply. And go ahead, finish what you had to say.
I think that it's important for people to have enough information to be able to speak as to what's going on. I can't speak as to the Grove property. I mean, I recognize it's across the street from Marymount. It's at the edge of the township. It seems to be a fairly old building on what appears to be a double lot. And I have no idea if this is going to be used for, as Brian has suggested, some kind of drainage activity. Green space, you mentioned, a pocket park is always sweet and always recognized to be something in the public's interest. Holding real estate for the development along the lines of what you might deem to be appropriate strikes me as turning the township into a real estate development firm. And I don't think that's appropriate. I actually question whether it's activity that's in the public interest. And so that's, that raises
The
serious
statutes
concerns.
provide for economic development.
But, and Jack, first of all, I want to make sure that this board, I mean, everybody realizes this board, I mean, there's no conflicted judgment, there's no clouded behavior, there's no anything, and we're doing what we think is in the best interest of the community. And as far as us, acquiring strategic pieces of real estate, again, I'm going to say this and stand on the table and say the fact that we have the resources to do it, which we didn't have preceding me and preceding this administration here, I'm proud of. And secondarily, we're not the only community that goes and picks up. Sycamore Township has done it, the city of Loveland's done it, Madeira's done it, Union Township has done it. I don't think anybody that is in our position. The easiest thing for me to do is to sit back and watch these pieces of property just move and say, I'm just going to sit there on my hands, rather than say, hey, we can always go put these things under contract. We can go look for uses that we think are strategically add property values, add to the quality of life of the community. And if we don't get those uses, we can always go back to where they were and put them out to the real market. So this board and this whole administration, we come from different economic backgrounds, different we don't have a lot in common, but one thing we do have in common is we trust each other and we look out for the best interest of the township. So I just want to make it clear on a positive note, I'm proud that we have the resources to go do these things, and all these properties are looking out for the best interest of the community. The tricky part of our community, we have 9 islands, which is that, Williams Meadow, which I know you live in, versus Ridgewood, and it's hard to go tie them all together, and I can go explain how they're all tied together, and it's in the best interest of the township that if a high tide raises all boats, and if all these places do well, in theory it helps the whole entire greater community of Columbia Township. But this more specifically helps Madison Place. All these purchases are to help the values of Madison Place, which then by proxy help out the values of all of Columbia Township. So there's nothing, no hidden agenda. I'd rather not have extra meetings. I'd prefer less meetings. So if we have these meetings, they're transparent. We follow all the regulations, all the rules to go do them. And again, I'm trying to field your questions, but I also want to go on the offense here and say we're very proud of the decisions we make and the ability to go out and buy these strategic properties. A lot of communities can't do this, and a lot of communities don't have the foresight to go do it. And I think we've got the right team of people that's really looking out for the best interests of the township. And these are all positive and great things for this community that we should be celebrating. That the fact that this board is acting proactively to go out and acquire these properties to protect the Madison Place and the greater good of Columbia Township as a whole. So this is all good news, is my point. I mean, I'm trying to address your questions. I know you're an attorney by trade, and you know, and you know how to phrase and do things very, very carefully. But I just want to say these are all positive things we're doing for the township. And by the way, there was a piece of property in Williams Meadow. I'd be open-minded to even saying, is there a way to go create green space there? I'll give you an example. The house right there at the corner of, is it Ashley, the court? It's got that extra little lot. You know where I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
That
at Ashley
lot.
View, yes.
That was going to be a swimming pool when it was originally.
I'm saying to you, if there was an
developed.
opportunity there and somebody presented it to us, I would be open-minded to looking at that.
And I'd be opposed to that.
Okay, I get that, but my point is, well, let me say this. I'm not saying I'd be for it or against it. I'd be open-minded to looking objectively and taking all the facts and deciding whether I'd be opposed or for it. But I would be open-minded to anything that's in the best interest of all those communities and could add value and add to the quality of life. So I'm not opposed to anything without looking at all the facts. So,
And I'm all for.
well, you said you were opposed to it. I'm saying to you, I would be open.
That I'd be opposed to.
Well, okay,
But
I would be open-minded to looking at all
improving
the
the
facts.
community of life, yes, I think that's wonderful.
That's what we all do.
One final, actually,
Yeah, please.
Okay.
one, the two leases on the two properties.
Mhm.
Melissa has pointed out that they terminate, she said, early '23. When is early '23? Is that March, June?
I can provide that information in an email after.
Okay,
We're halfway through the
okay,
meeting.
all right.
Time.
Okay,
I'm done.
yeah. All right, fair game, then let's move on to the rest of the agenda. And let's move on to the reports. First, we start with the fiscal officer report with Ms. Heekin.
I actually have a couple things to add to open forum, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
Okay, go.
So Rebecca Ford of Marymount Landing provided some baked goods for the crew, and Williams Meadow provided lunch to the crew, both to say thank you for their outstanding and above and beyond the call work during our most recent and all of our storms. So keeping them fed, and they're, you know, everybody loves them, as you know.
Ms. Ford's the best.
You know, we in administration watch all the food come and go back there and let us go.
Did they share?
Okay, the guys do.
So that was all I had for that. Okay, so now my report. Sorry about that. Sorry, January, obviously the first month of our 23 budget year. The general fund ending balance was $3,237,084, which is up 7% from December of last year. Restricted fund ending balance was $5,433,790, down 4% from December. These funds total $8,670,874, which is a little bit less than 1% from December. January revenues are $347,713, expenses $349,054, and that's the only time that will happen this year. It's obviously January. Year-to-date revenues, same numbers, $347,713, expenses year-to-date $349,054. The Hamilton County tax revenue settlement, the second half, occurred in August of '22, and typically these funds are deposited in September. Our next semi-annual settlement will occur in April of '23. And voter-approved levy revenues don't cover all of the township's services, like the road crew. Business revenues cover more than 80% of the cost of public services in Columbia Township. And thanks to Columbia Township's success in attracting and supporting our businesses, we're able to continue to provide our community with exceptional services at a lower cost.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions about Ms. Heacon's report? Okay.
Looking at you, Tom.
All right. Any questions about the road superintendent's report? Mr. Frazier's report. Okay, we move on to the administrator's report with Ms. Taylor.
So it's almost, it feels like it's 60 or 70 today. I think it's going to be 70 tomorrow. However, a reminder that, shout out to our crew, that in the 2 months of winter so far, December and January, the crews have been through the township 26 times. And we've already used 166 tons of salt. So the historic bomb cyclone around the holidays and multiple icing events may be in the rearview mirror. There may be some ahead of us. While we enjoy this warmth, we appreciate everything that the crew did for us. I'm going to leave this for Brian Lamar. I know that you're going to share in your trustee report community events. We just announced this week the schedule for 2023, so I'll leave that with you. Ice skating is open 2 more weeks at 50 West. It is still open despite the warm temperatures. It just presents some challenges. They have been really working hard to increase the different types of people who are from Columbia Township and elsewhere who are interested in the ice rink. This has been the best year operationally and attendance-wise so far, despite the recent warm weather. They've added 2 fun events. I never had these things when I was a young professional, but curling. They have curling on the ice, which they use mini kegs, and then they do broom ball leagues. So in celebration of Valentine's Day this weekend and through today, 50 West put out a post that while you're enjoying the ice rink, so here's 50 West going an extra mile to help promote the ice rink in Columbia Township as part of our branding, that there was a featured strawberry hot chocolate milkshake with a chocolate brownie in it and funnel cake bites with Nutella dip and strawberry drizzle. And if that wasn't enough red already, you can finish it off with their Test of Time red velvet cake stout. So I wanted to share that. Appreciate that. So this is our 3rd year of this partnership for keeping winter season activities going in Columbia Township. On NED, our $500,000 investment into major beautification projects in our neighborhoods, we are doing the final punch list items from our 300 trees installed late last year, and we are underway already with our 2023 street tree design. A reminder of the streets that we did in 2022 for the street tree, which is separate than the decorative street signs. We just installed 17 trees on Old Worcester Lane, Ken Oak, Menardi, Erling, Fredericksburg, and in Madison Place West, all streets west of Plainville, and Madison Place East on Bramble and Buckingham. Up in 2023, obviously I don't have this memorized, Dustin does, but we have Madison Place East, the remaining streets, Lucille, Donald, Moffett, Eversole, Monning, and Ravenna. So it's been just a terrific project, and this is our 2nd year. And then also as part of that NED, Neighborhood Economic Development, we upgraded, as I mentioned last couple of meetings, we upgraded the gas lights in Ridgewood and refurbished them and got a ton of really positive response back from that. And as a reminder, that is with what we call our Mary Jane money, medical marijuana. So the Plainville Business District revitalization, which is called out in the comprehensive plan for the township to take multiple actions to try to revitalize the downtown district. With the purchase of 6805 Cambridge and 6896 Murray, we've had interest from a number of potential tenants. We've shown through the brokerage, the property on Murray has been shown a number of times. And we've even had some Madison Place area stakeholders come up and suggest different types of restaurants and other venues that they like in other communities, and would they be a fit for this building? And we forward those to the broker at Lee and Associates. And Molly actually is a resident on Murray. We've mentioned that before, the lead broker on that. On the Madison Place Firehouse, I already went through that during the beginning of the meeting, so I will skip that section. In our neighborhoods, we have 3 sanitary sewer projects underway. When I say we, in supporting projects, one by MSD to extend sanitary sewer along the properties at Muchmore, which includes Walton Creek Village. We're working with them, MSD, to move that project forward, and funded by MSD, but they will require right-of-way. So here's another example of when we have contracts that need to come forward before the board quickly. We will be asked by MSD, they will be sending us a contract for us to sell to MSD, for MSD to purchase right-of-way in Muchmore Park and at Locust in order for them to extend that sewer lateral off of the main. And so that will be something that will be likely an emergency at next month's meeting. That's when they told us to expect that they will have it to us. And then we are still waiting in the Walton Creek area for WP Land to move forward with their sewer extension project, and then we will extend it onto Elm after that. Under services, a quick comment under energy aggregation. There was a story that went viral. Do people still say that? About people who are coming out of aggregation programs in some of the communities that have those aggregation programs for cost savings, and switching over to what is pitched as lower cost providers. And then when the initial 6 months lower rate expires, the cost goes up, in this couple's case, double of what it was when they were with their aggregation program, and they have bills that they cannot afford to pay, and are doing a shout out on social media about not falling anymore for the tricks of the independent energy suppliers that are trying to pull people off of aggregation programs, because they know that they believe that they are easy targets. So next, on our 10-year road priority plan, I have mentioned we've been trying, this is the 2nd year, the next road on the 10-year priority plan for rehabilitation. We repave roads. I know earlier it was mentioned that there was a repaving. It was actually a full street rehabilitation. We do street repaving, street crack sealing, and street minor repairs as part of our annual program. We do full street reconstructions as part of our major 10-year plan. So the next road on that priority is, as I've shared the last couple of years, Cambridge East, so east of Plainville, and it was not awarded a grant last year. It was not awarded a grant in this year's round. We resubmitted. Typically, if we don't get a grant one year, we come back another year because the pot is different in terms of who's competing against us in the county. And so we are going for a second chance grant, which is for small governments only, and we've so far been successful with that second chance. So we'll see if that happens, and if that's the case, then we will begin engineering Cambridge. And that second chance application is in May, so we're preparing that. I have an update from prior months on the Walton Creek North Road improvement, which is a 3-way partnership between SORTA and the Hamilton County Engineers Office and the Township. and is entirely funded by grants or the Walton Creek TIF, which is the new property taxes that will be paid by the apartment community that will be built there. Is under construction there now, site development. And we conducted a public bid in January and followed state law for the lowest and best bidder, and awarded the contract to J.K. Muir Corporation at our additional meeting in January, additional public meeting in January. And so our pre-construction meeting is next Tuesday. So a big week next week, with Monday the 20th being the final plan, full set plan review. They call it a page turn, with the entire Madison Place Firehouse team. And then on Tuesday, we have the pre-construction meeting with J.K. Muir, the county, and our engineers. And then once we have the schedule for the Walton Creek Road improvement, we will make that public, and then we will activate our In the Loop, which is an email notice that you're aware that we've used for all of our other road projects and any other major project. We have all of the residents sign up that are interested in an email. We call it In the Loop, and we send out weekly updates from when we get the schedule from the contractor all the way through the end of construction. So we will activate that after next week. The last item on the road report is that we're waiting for ODOT to schedule a public meeting. I think it's going to be late March. ODOT is going to, as you're aware, I've mentioned it before, and we've talked about it, vacate Old Wooster, which used to be a piece of US 50, and before they built the new 50. And so we're going to, ODOT will have a public meeting with us and with the residents to sit down and talk about us taking on this new asset, building it into our road improvement plan, and maintenance going forward. And so we'll finalize that here in the next month or so for the public meeting. It'll be a multi-month vacation process. It probably will not be effective until the summer, be legally effective. You may be seeing additional radar signs popping up. We are still installing additional radar signs that we identified through last year's safety study. They, like a lot of other equipment, have been on back order, and we get some of them, and then we have to schedule those for install as well. I don't have anything else on my report. Any questions?
One comment I do want to make is a shout out to you and leveraging your relationship with ODOT and Dustin and myself, that we were able to go down and be successful going down and negotiating on that the Worcester Pike abandonment, and we were able to, basically they were going to go hand us all the liabilities of the culvert and everything else down there, the old abandoned road, and we pushed back and went and took the ability to sit down with them and say, we're not taking it, and they listened and they agreed. So,
And they modified the plan.
they modified the plan.
They were
and it-
very
and it
understanding.
eliminates a huge liability. I mean, not on a daily basis, but in the future, if something happened to that culvert, it would collapse or whatever. It could have been a huge liability with Columbia Township, but we took the initiative to go do it. They certainly listened, engaged, and they agreed. So that was a huge play. I only say that because it's really easy just to sit there and watch the chips fall when they may, and but to be proactive and look out to say that, the future generations that may be sitting here 30 years from now and that culvert goes, we just don't have the resources to go manage something like that. Plowing the streets, sweeping the streets is one thing, but if something major happened, that would have been a problem. So kudos to Melissa for leveraging those relationships, because that was a major win. So, and Dustin and everybody else. So, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the administrator's report?
Nope, pretty good.
Okay. Any question about the economic development report? I guess we will see Dustin again in April.
Yep.
Okay. That we move on to the police report with Lieutenant Neighbor.
Excuse me. First off, I want to thank whatever resident was that brought us some chocolates. were
They
very
don't bring
good,
the
by way.
trustees chocolates ever. Never. Nobody's ever once said, hey, here's some chocolates. I'll wait for that day.
But they were delicious, I just know. I know it was just it seems like just a few weeks ago that we had a drug take-back for DEA. But the Ohio Attorney General's office somehow, I guess they initiated a program to have the drug take-back themselves. So now we have an Attorney General's office, and then the DEA is going to follow up with another one coming up here shortly on February 25th from 10 until 2 at the substation at 6943 Montgomery Road. The Ohio Attorney General's office is going to offer that program for the drug take-back for your prescription medications, and it's good to get those off the street. We don't want to flush those down our toilet. It's bad for our environment. And then the DEA is going to turn around and do theirs on April the 22nd, also 10 until 2. Again, 6943 Montgomery Road at our substation. With the warmer days that we've been having, I just wanted to point out and remind everybody to watch out for bicyclists, runners, as well as motorcyclists on the roadway. And the last thing is the Kias and the Hyundais that just keep getting stolen, and we recover them and arrest people, and it hasn't seemed to slow down. So those are a continuous problem that we've been having lately. So other than that, I have nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. I noticed that this is non-criminal, but there were a significant amount of traffic-related increase this year compared to last year. Is there a reason for that?
Well, I have my own opinions on that. I couldn't agree with you more. I know during COVID, while COVID was going on, police were encouraged not to have contact with people because they wanted them out there for emergency purposes. And I know that COVID still exists at this point, but it's really has reduced significantly as opposed to 2020. But statistically speaking, I've been looking at the numbers of the officers making traffic stops, even responding to certain runs, and we're trying to reinvigorate our officers and get them back to doing things before pre-COVID days.
Okay.
I've noticed that it's been discussed with not only my department, it's been discussed with other departments, and we're all kind of baffled because there's no real push to do traffic enforcement. It's really difficult to get our officers to do that because of a lot of litigation that's been going against police. You got the COVID times, and just the generation. I don't know. That's the only way I can explain it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your report. All right, that we move on to the fire district reports, both the Little Miami Joint Fire and Rescue and the Deer Park Silverton Fire District report with Mr. Lamar.
Yeah, I'll be pretty brief. Not a lot of news, which is good for fire districts, but I wanted to point out a couple things specifically related to the Little Miami Joint Fire District. Is that in December the board approved the purchase of a new ambulance, which is kind of a big deal. We may not see that ambulance because of the backlog for maybe up to 2 years, unfortunately. But I want to commend the fire chief, Chief Sifke, who's here, for his due diligence on ensuring that we got the right ambulance and got a good price on it. He worked really hard on that, and now is also a good time to point out that not only did we buy a new ambulance, the chief has put together a 10-year capital expenditures budget, which I hadn't seen before as part of the fire board, although I'm rather recent. That includes replacing all of the equipment for the Little Miami Joint Fire District, and I could not be happier with how fiscally responsible. The levy helps some. Chief would say it helps a lot. For the 10-year planning, that we are also planning on buying a new engine for the Little Miami. If you know that fire department, the 2 very old engines and a lot of PPE and lots of other equipment. But we couldn't really do that as a member of the fire board without this 10-year expenditures budget that makes us fiscally responsible. And I wanted to commend the fire chief for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Great job. Okay, move on to trustees' reports. Anything to report?
I was going to mention the podcast a little bit.
You go.
The first one is, we did a podcast, it's been a little while, about the Madison Place Firehouse, and I wanted to mention that. I know there's a lot of people, especially in Madison Place, that have fond memories of that firehouse. And we had Beth Solobarger on the podcast, and she's a historian, and she's done a lot of interviews with former chiefs and people in the community about that firehouse. So I would listen to that podcast if you get a chance. She will also be involved as we open the firehouse. We're going to maintain a historical element to it to maintain that. It was a huge part of the community for so many years, and residents know that. So that's one part, and the other one is we just released another podcast yesterday, which I hope people are excited about because it announces all of our events for the year, and I wanted to go over a couple of those really quick. Our next event will be Saturday, March 11th, and that's our St. Patrick's Day event. Last year it was at the Madison Place Firehouse. This year, however, it will be at 50 West because of possible construction of the firehouse. So that's the next event. And then the two others I wanted to mention are Saturday, June 3rd, which is our yearly Margaritaville Taste of Columbia Township, which is my favorite event of the year. Always a lot of fun. And then our summer concert, which if you have been to the Billy Joel and Elton John, those are the past 2 years.
Tributes, not
Tributes,
that.
not the real person. The national tribute bands.
We bring in bands from
They're incredible.
large markets.
This year will be Michael Jackson, and that is August 5th, and that will be at 50 West as well.
Tribute band, not actually Michael.
Michael will not be there, unfortunately.
And not Janet either.
Not Janet either. And we have other events planned as well, but I want to mention those are the three bigger ones that are upcoming to put on your calendars. And listen to the podcast for more information, and that's all.
And the podcast kind of ties it together of why we do these events, how we do them, why we do them, and bringing the community together and giving a sense of community. And again, with the 9 islands of Columbia Township, it's somewhat of a challenge, but to create a sense of community pride. And we do get a lot of compliments in terms of, the branding of Columbia Township, the sense of just having a sense of place and things. And as Melissa's mentioned, it gives her a lot of feedback on an informal basis to get to know the residences that maybe are afraid to come in here and speak on camera, on microphone, etc. There's just so many great derivatives we get from doing these events that put us really in touch with the public. So the podcast digs deep into that. If anybody wants to take some notos and listen to it.
It was a fun podcast.
I say that because
And very interesting.
I don't want to presume that anybody, I have a hand in the podcast, and so do some of these guys. We're not entertainers, but if you can get through it, it's
hard to be exciting when you're talking about the history of a fire station.
Yeah, it's informative.
But it's informative and interesting.
And the goal is always, as we say, we're trying to put the information out there, so we're trying to go communicate, because that's always been a
Go above and
buzzword.
beyond.
Buzzword of trying to go, get out transparency, communication, getting out. Chief, we did a podcast in the fire department. We're trying to put that information out there. People don't want to listen, I understand, but I'm saying we are trying to get it out there the best we can. So we're proud of them. We work hard at them. We do a lot of preparation on them, and they're professionally done. Maybe entertaining for some, maybe boring for others, but we'll see. Anyway, but take a deep dive into the firehouse. Take a deep dive into the community events and why we do them, and etc. We'll give you some information.
On June 3rd, is that at 50 West?
Margaritaville that is in Madison Place on Murray Avenue, where it's been the last few years.
Okay, any questions about communications? Then we move on to resolutions, and I'm going to hand this back off to Melissa because I always mess those up. So Melissa's the perfectionist.
So we have 5 this evening. We typically do supplemental appropriation first, simply because it's easy and it's one reading. But I'm going to move it down because it ties to one of the resolutions that I'm going to be reading, and so I just want to do it in that order to follow the protocol. So our first 2 resolutions are emergencies, and our next 2 resolutions are regulars. And just to clarify, some misinformation from earlier. The emergencies are effective immediately. Ohio law provides for dispensing with the second reading and further taking the step of declaring an emergency. And it has to be it has to meet a public purpose, which is defined by law. We cannot declare emergencies on anything that we choose to. The regular resolutions, if you dispense with the second reading, the resolution actually does not become effective for 30 days. So it is not an emergency. It is not effective that day. So there's a 30-day period in which anyone may make comments to the trustees, and then it goes into effect. And then regular resolutions are 60 days. We are able to do those sometimes on occasion when we have a multi-month lead on something, but it's not very common because of the contracts and other requirements that we are bringing before the board. So let's start with the first one, Resolution 2305, 2023, authorizing the purchase of one 2023 Bobcat skid steer, I have to always say that slowly, loader and trailer to replace the 1992 model for street repairs, snow and ice program, and yard waste collection and recycling program, and dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency. So we have been trying to get caught up on purchasing equipment, similar to what we mentioned that the chief is doing as well. We have an equipment replacement schedule. We have a lot of equipment and vehicles that are 20 or more years old, and when an asset comes up for replacement, I bring it before the board. And in this case, we have a 1992 Bobcat loader and a trailer, and they are 21 years old, and so they are due to be replaced. And so I am asking the board to authorize the purchase through the state bid process, which guarantees the lowest price to communities through the state bid process. The loader is $60,916.48. The trailer is $8,694. We estimate after the trade-in of our 1992 Bobcat with trailer that the net cost will be about $65,000, but because we don't have a guaranteed trade-in offer at this time, I'm going to go ahead and request up to the full $75,000, and then we will just reduce the actual purchase price by the trade-in value. The reason for the emergency is, as I've mentioned before, on other purchases, the inventory of public works vehicles and equipment is nearly depleted, in some cases entirely depleted, and we're waiting for new items to be manufactured. You authorized the purchase of a chipper in 2022. We still do not have it. You authorized the purchase of police vehicles over the years, and sometimes it was a year or more before we were getting them. And that length of time has ticked up as well. Also, the vendor, when they do public state bids, because the price is discounted for governments, they don't put all of their inventory on the state bids, and so the inventory goes very quickly. So once we get a proposal, we have to very quickly authorize the purchase, or we will lose our place in line for that equipment. So are there any questions on this? Mm-hmm. All right. So I've conducted the first reading of the resolution. May I have a motion and a second to pass the resolution and dispense with the second reading?
So moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
So the second reading is suspended and the resolution is adopted. May I have a motion and a second to invoke the emergency?
So moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Resolution takes effect immediately. Thank you.
What a run on that old thing, 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and Jamie's busy fixing it a lot. Jamie's head is always under a hood in the back.
Take it out for a drink. It's 21.
The next resolution, 2306. Resolution authorizing the expenditure of Hamilton County CDBG-CV, which stands for Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus. Grant funds for the purpose of financing the construction, improvement, and furnishing of an outdoor dining seating area, authorizing the execution of a construction easement or similar right to construct, and other matters related hereto, dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency. So I brought this before the board before. The Hamilton County, during the height of COVID, received an allocation of HUD grant dollars, and some of the dollars were restricted to help restaurants retain jobs and expand dining options. And the Hamilton County Community Development Department solicited communities to apply for grants, and we applied for a $100,000 grant. Actually, we applied for a $50,000 grant and proposed an outdoor dining pavilion, temporary and then permanent, at the Promenade on Wooster Pike in order to support 4 locally owned restaurants that are co-located in that center. The county, you'll remember me sharing this story, the county was so impressed with our project that they took our proposal and shared it with all other communities in Hamilton County and asked others if they would have the opportunity to do this in their community. And Silverton actually had an opportunity where they were able to do it, and they doubled our grant. So we did the phase 1, which was the temporary outdoor dining, at a time when we were not able to get all the materials or get contractors or engineers or architects to work on the project, and have worked on it since that time. And so you already, in a prior resolution, authorized that we would accept the grant award and to do the project. And we did phase 1. This additionally authorizes me to enter into a temporary easement with the property owner, which will allow the project to be constructed within that easement, which the easement will be public during the project. And then we will bid this project. The grant, about $20,000 of the grant has been spent. Some of the materials can be reused. The balance of the grant will be available through the public bidding process. And so we will conduct a public bid, and then when the public bid is completed and we're ready for an award, I will come back to the board for an award to the contractor, and at that time also will authorize the expenditure of the funds, and that will be an emergency because that's how the contractor awards work. If we don't secure the deal with the contractor, they bid on other projects. They put other people ahead of us in line, and we don't want that for this project. So this authorizes me to move forward with the permanent construction project in cooperation with the property owner, and to be able to expend the balance of the county grant so that I can close out all of the grant reporting and requirements. Do you have any questions on this?
No.
Anyone? All right, so I've read the first reading. May I have a motion and a second to pass the resolution and dispense with the second reading?
So moved. To her second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
The second reading is suspended. The resolution is in effect. May I have a motion and a second to invoke the emergency
So
clause?
moved. Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution takes effect immediately.
And the other comment I will make too is I know a lot of those restaurants and things have, given us a tremendous accolades for stepping up in action. I know it was a couple of years ago, and in addition, that center is 100% full. So I think that's great. And if you really go look at, where I go take, by way of example, Jersey Mike's and the Marymount Promenade has thrived, and I look at Subway over in the other place that did not succeed. So, I just mean that was a very proactive move we were able to make, and I'm just glad to see the sustainability. That center is 100% full.
Which it wasn't.
Because historically, that center has been, as I've said before, it's an unanchored strip center that's very, 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 very big, maybe too big for being unanchored. What I mean by that is not grocery store anchored or whatever, but the first time in history it is now, I shouldn't say the first time in history, first time, it seemed very sustainable, and it is full. So that is great, positive momentum. And kudos to Paul Gallenstein and the developer and everybody else for participating in it as well. Okay.
All right, thank you for that additional information. The next two resolutions are regular readings with dispensing with the second reading. The first, authorizing the administrator to enter into an agreement for the purchase of real estate for public purposes at 4053 Grove Avenue and dispensing with the second reading. So I am requesting that the trustees help authorize that we can purchase a vacant lot at 4053 Grove Avenue to hold it for future public purposes in the next few years to facilitate roadway stormwater management and also increase passive green space. As you know, we've talked often in these meetings about Madison Place is our largest neighborhood. It's our oldest neighborhood. It was platted initially in 1910. And it is heavily congested above ground, houses, driveways, sidewalks, roadways. It is additionally congested underground. There are multiple private and public utilities that are underground. And we were advised when I first started, and we've talked about this in detail many times before, that we are reaching the point where when we do full road reconstructions, that the opportunity for standard under road drainage system capacity increase is becoming constrained or not available to us. And so there have been, the roadway engineers have worked together looking at stormwater drainage with a stormwater drainage engineering expert firm, identified the lowest levels in the Madison Place neighborhood as the southeast, and the three lowest streets are north to south, Grace, Cambridge, Murray. And so based on water flow, those are the opportunity areas for us to seek alternative stormwater management. And we did so when we purchased Cambridge last summer. That was an opportunity for us if the engineering works out both from a design perspective and also a cost perspective, that we could do underground vault storage of water there until it can go into the downstream system. The downstream system, I've mentioned every time we've talked about a road project, is at or over capacity. So anytime that we want to add capacity to capture additional stormwater on our roads and move them through an underground system, we have to hold it in Columbia Township and release it at a slower rate than the storm, so that the downstream Hamilton County stormwater and MSD sewer combined systems have the ability to handle it. So this property was purchased, and it has two parcels. The house straddles both parcels, and we are going to, if we move forward with this purchase, work with the county to split the lot differently. Instead of splitting the lot on the narrow where the house sits on the lot, we're going to create a 50% split for a lot on the southern part of the property, which is at the corner of Grove and Grace. And it currently has a fence, and we will repair the fence. We will add the property to our mowing schedule. We do not plan to do anything immediately to it until we understand what is in the cards, so to speak, for Cambridge East, which I mentioned is next up with the road grant. If Cambridge East is funded by OPWC this May, we will begin to design Cambridge. Once Cambridge is designed, while we are constructing Cambridge, we will design Grace. Likely is next up. We can either do Grace or Murray, but likely it will be Grace. So this gives us the opportunity to go ahead in a very rare opportunity to snag one of only a few vacant lots that remain in all of this 500 home neighborhood. And the public uses that I have described are authorized for purchase by the township, and the cost for the property for the lot is $75,000 and plus closing costs. And we are under contract to purchase the property, and the contract is expiring, and so we would like to go ahead and close and purchase this. I don't know if there anything else that would be significant. There's in your resolution, there's a snapshot on the second page that shows you how the existing house is on the lot, and the lot split will change, and we will end up with the red square, 50%, nearly a 5,000 square foot lot with the star. When I had an inside lead on this property, which is the same thing that happened with Cambridge. Someone called me about a matter relating to it, and I immediately called the owner because it is in the area that has been identified to try to acquire property. The owner already had a verbal offer from another individual, an investor who wanted to build another house with a lot split, and so there would have been two houses there. And so by interrupting that and purchasing the lot, this will in the future either stay passive green space, or it may be graded to become a natural bioswale. So we would have natural plantings in it, and it would hold surface water and then drain it. Or depending on the funding, we may be able to do a vault underneath the surface. And we'll engineer all that as we get into engineering for Grace.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
I have a comment. Should I wait till after the vote or before the vote? I'll just make it now. The reason I'm a trustee is because of flooding in Madison Place. That's how I got involved in working with Columbia Township and met Mr. Kubicki and Ms. Hughes. It's very personal to me, the flooding that happens in Madison Place. It is very personal to my neighbors. I was tasked early on as a trustee to look for substantive solutions to this problem, which is very, very challenging given our proximity to Indian Hill, the city of Cincinnati, the village of Marymount. Topography, Mother Nature is undefeated, and we have lots of challenges with that. I think we made lots of substantive changes with the work that we did partnering with the school at that area, which we've talked about before, and I think this is an incredibly substantive possibility for substantive, incredible improvements. The residents that live on Grove, that live on Grace and Cambridge and Murray have experienced flooding, just as I have in the northern part of Madison Place. This will potentially, I don't want to oversell it, potentially change their lives. And that is, as a public servant, I don't think we can do anything better. So I commend our administrator for thinking outside the box and acquiring this property that can change people's lives, and I couldn't be prouder to vote for this. And so that's my comment.
Very good. Okay, with that, you
ready?
want to put up the motion?
I will. So I have read the title of the resolution. May I have a motion and a second to pass the resolution and dispense with the second reading?
So moved. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
The resolution goes into effect in 30 days. All right, next, thank you. Almost done. So this also is a regular resolution dispensing with the second reading. This authorizes the advance of funds from the general fund to cover the Grove Avenue expenses, which will be paid by the Plainville TIF. So the TIF that we put into place when the Woosty Group did the expansion on their property, we will capture all new tax revenue for 30 years. The board passed that in late 2020. The school payment will be made whole, and after that, funds from that TIF will go to eligible public uses in the southern Madison Place neighborhood. This is one of those such uses. So the title is Authorizing an Advance of Funds from General Fund 1000 to Finance Certain Real reimbursable expenditures related to the purchase of real property for public purposes at 4053 Grove Avenue and dispenses with the second reading. So this will authorize a loan from general fund, and then when we start receiving the TIF settlements, then we will pay back the general fund from the Plainville TIF with the $75,000. This is actually requesting 80, which is on the supplemental appropriation, that will cover any incidentals that we may have with the closing, and then also installing a fence and those types of things. So I have read the title of the resolution. May I have a motion and a second to pass the resolution and dispense with the second reading?
So moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
The resolution will be in effect in 30 days. Last, supplemental appropriation to supplement Resolution 2268, the 2022 Columbia Township Annual Appropriation for 2023, and Supplemental Appropriation 2303. These are expenses that when we finalized the budget for approval back in July that we did not anticipate that we would need in this budget. And so if there have any questions with that one? Okay, it's one reading only. I've read the title of the resolution. May I have a motion and a second to pass?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Okay, and make a motion that we approve the payments of the bills, bank reconciliation, and financial reports. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Okay, I make a motion for the signing of the minutes and resolution. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
And I'll make a motion, we adjourn so everybody can enjoy Valentine's Day.
I'll
Do I hear a
second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Kubicki?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Have I signed all these?
Yeah, no, you have to.